How's it going, guys? My name is Stone and welcome to these reviews. Today I'm going to be talking about the West Coast pop art experimental band's fourth studio album, Volume 3, A Child's Guide to Good and Evil. This is an album that I've really wanted to talk about for a long time on this channel, but have never been able to find it at a decent price as a record until recently. This came out in 1968 and is considered to be the band's most accomplished work by critics and by most fans, myself included, as it really sees them maturing more as songwriters and using more complex studio techniques that really add to the psychedelia and bizarre nature that their music has. But what really drives that uneasy feeling throughout the band's catalog are Markley's lyrics, typically regarding things like the loss of innocence and interest towards young women. And while I think it is important to recognize the controversy behind the band's history, more specifically Markley himself, I don't let it stop me from enjoying the music, because while the lyrics do go hand in hand with everything that goes on this album, Markley had no contribution to the actual music on here, only the lyrics. So the Harris Brothers and who else has been on the West Coast pop art experimental band really were just as essential to creating such an eerie vibe throughout this whole album, more so on the second side. Side 1 opens with probably the album's most accessible track, 18 is Over the Hill, which is, I consider to be one of the best psychedelic songs from the 60s. And while I do say that about one track in every video, I feel like I really do mean it when I say that, especially for this one. It's just, this song pulls you in so easily in this record, even when you, just upon first listen, I suppose. I know it pulled me in, and I was already prepared to sit through all of it. And though it doesn't really hint at the direction the record would take, it certainly is one of the best songs in their catalog. And it's hard to describe how beautiful it is. It really blends an atmosphere that is both ominous yet pastoral at the same time. It's hard to tell whether it's a song to be happy and more upbeat, or is it something to reflect to. I don't know, that's just how I interpret the song. But like I said, one of my favorites. We then move into the Fuzzed Out Acoustic driven song, which is currently playing in the country. I really like how its sense of psychedelic folk really still carries that unusual sound that this band could produce so well, and features some great vocals by Markley once again. It's definitely a song I'd love to learn the acoustic guitar, as it does seem very fun and safe to play at the same time. Following this is one of my favorite tracks on this record, and I'd say one of two tracks that really represent what this record is all about, Ritual Number 1. The drumming on it is fantastic. The main riff played on that sitar provides such a gloomy and mind-melting feeling to the track that at one point is backed by some really good offbeat percussion. I also really like how Markley's vocals come off super anxious, as if as it does, I should say, really really portrays that feeling of running away from something, or someone running from something. What is that something though? I'm not sure. Only Markley knows. After that track is Our Drummer Always Plays in the Nude, which is much more rocking than anything else on side 1, and it's quite melodic. I feel that if the band had maybe written more songs like this, albeit with less or more accessible lyrics, and dropped the psychedelic act, they probably could have had a much better career in terms of sales, as I feel like the song could have really done well in part 1. We then, part 1 being their second studio album. We then get to the very mellow track, As the World Rises and Falls, which recreates a similar atmosphere to 18 is Over the Hill, but just expands upon that feeling with a longer running time, really. The guitar playing throughout it is very nice, and the vocals as well do a great job at providing an unsettling yet welcoming atmosphere. I say welcoming in how Markley sings the song and just the melody of it, but unsettling in the sense of what he's actually talking about, in the sense of things like careful, he's got whips and chains, just weird kind of kinky stuff. At least that's how I interpret it or see it as. Side 1 closes on a personal favorite of mine, Until the Poorest People Have Money to Spend. This track is just so bombastic and so catchy, and I love every second of and I love everything about it, really. From the build up of the drums and the second half, the lovely use of the sitar once again, and markedly singing as well. Overall, it's just as strong as just as bombastic as anything else we've heard so far, and I'd say it's definitely a deep cut dive on this record because though I don't hear people talking about this band, those I do hear never really bring up this song, but it's one of my favorites from them. So side one overall is very strong and definitely the most consistent of the two, but things only get weirder and more obscene on the second side. It opens with Watch Yourself, a track that uses crowd noises to give the impression that it's live, which it does pretty well, but it isn't. I really enjoy the build up and pacing throughout it, and I love how menacing the guitar riff and the guitar tone is on the song. It's just so good and makes for a great opener, or side opener, I say. And I find that Sean Harris's vocals on this track are really good, and I really wish he had sung on some more songs because I don't know, I love having variety in vocals. I really got that just from listening to Beach Boys or growing up listening to them. This transitions into the very malice and nightmare-inducing title track, A Child's Guide to Good and Evil. Its fantasy-like lyrics are backed perfectly by such a dark, psychedelic undertone throughout the entire music. The track is certainly one of the strangest songs to have come out of the psychedelic scene of the 60s, but is by no means an uninteresting listen. And, yeah, perfectly, like I said, I would say either this song or the next song are the second track that perfectly represents what this album is all about, in the sense of just super eerie, super, I don't want to say uncomfortable, I feel like uneasy going music that still provides such a weird atmosphere, bizarre, like I've said before. And the second track I mentioned that could be tied for second place is Ritual 2. Sorry, second place, you know what I mean, like songs that really represent this record. Though it isn't too similar to Ritual number 1, I find it to be just as great, having such a spaciness to it that no other track on this record has. It really is something else and is really out there for even for this band, which I really like. And the vocals, like I get, are really good at creating such an eerie vibe, especially just him repeating certain things. And just the way he talks throughout some of these songs are very unsettling, which I do enjoy though, because they add to the already unsettling music. We then get to what is surprisingly one of the more popular songs on this record, A Child of a Few Hours is Burning to Death. Up until very, very recently, I didn't know this song was an anti-war song. And I always thought it was like just some more weird shit that Mark Lee was into, but now that I know it's talking about Vietnam and the violence and whatnot, it's actually very strong lyrically, as it does provide such a grim but honest reality of unnecessary war deaths of women and children. It's kind of actually sad when you read that one line where he says, "We are all," what does he say? He says, "We are nothing but soft, moist people," in the sense like they are no threats, but they are still burned to death. So yeah, and it does this also well while being backed by a sick guitar lick that I will say is a bit repetitive, but I could still enjoy it for no matter how long it goes on for. And then from this point on, the album kind of just falls on its face in the terms of having any sort of satisfying conclusion, let alone any conclusion to the concept of this record. Though it kind of does come off like a loose concept, it doesn't really have too much going on. It really just sprawls out of control, which maybe that's what they're trying to say. I don't know. It starts out pretty promising. Oh, sorry, the last two tracks, the first being As Kind as Summer, is easily the worst song in this album. It starts off kind of promising with some decent playing and some good vocals until it turns into the band scratching the tapes so that he's saying evil and then evil in reverse, back and forth until they go back into some more jamming. And it's apparently one of the first examples to be scratching the tape, but it's just not that entertaining at all, and it goes on for way too long. And for the song only being 1 minute, it really does not feel worth listening to. or I don't know, it's not satisfying whatsoever. It's just like it could have been left off the album easily, in my opinion. But yeah, it's just whatever to me. What I'd like to say about it is it's definitely more interesting for how they made it than for how it actually came out, if that makes sense. I don't know, because I really hated the song for a while, but I grown to be okay with it. Like much of the songs that I point out I don't like, I try to deal with them so I can enjoy the rest of the record. But unless it's really bad, then it really turns me off from listening to the album. An example, if I haven't mentioned already, is Obscured by Clouds, and you can probably guess what song I'm talking about. But, going off that tangent now, the closer on this album is actually pretty funny. It's Anniversary of World War III. Now, this is basically 93 seconds of nothing. It's just blank, which I like the sarcastic joke in the sense that, oh, we won't be around if we have a World War III. Everyone will be dead, and the anniversary won't be anything. It'll be silent, which I think is pretty smart and pretty funny. If anything, it's more interesting than As Kind of Summer. That's why I still kind of think As Kind of Summer is worse. Only because this is ironic, and it's knowingly ironic. So yeah. It's better that it's a closer though, because it wouldn't have fit anywhere else in the album. And like I said, it does feel like an empty conclusion, but I don't know. I do like how side 2 has a bunch of the weirder stuff on it kind of thrown together, more so than side 1, so I do admire it for that. So yeah, this album really shows the West Coast pop art experimental band becoming more technical in the studio and being able to write such elaborate material that I would say is way more experimental than what some other psych bands were doing in LA at the time. My top 4 songs, if I had to pick, would be Ritual 1, Ritual 2, 18 is Over the Hill, and Until the Poorest People Have Money to Spend. Like I said, I enjoy all these tracks. If I ever don't enjoy a track, I'll let you know. But like I said, I really like most of these. Like the title track is good. Like especially when I go back and do these album reviews, really gets me time, or gets me more comfortable listening to this music and enjoy all these songs. So yeah, I'd love to hear your top 4 in the comments, or just your thoughts about this album overall. If anyone's still watching, I'll definitely show off this record itself. This is the, what do they call it? Rare Master Reel Carrier Photos. This is the inner sleeve. You can see it's kind of interesting. I don't know if you can see it right there, but on Anniversary of World War III, it just says 93 seconds of blank, which I find charming. On the other side. And then I'll read to you the description of this on the hype sticker, because I find it to be way better than an intro I could have done. Formed in Los Angeles, California in 1965, the West Coast pop art experimental band created music that possesses an eerily atmospheric and at times sinister quality that is bluntly political, childlike, and bizarre. So it really does well in selling you on this record if you haven't heard it. It is a mono pressing too, so that's kind of nice. It makes some of the tracks like Watch Yourself hit even harder. And yeah, picture the group at the time. So yeah, not all people talk about this album, and I'm really trying to get these lesser known psych albums out there, especially like from 60s and whatnot, and really compare them to the big stuff like Beatles and Cream and all that jazz. I mean, I haven't talked about Cream yet, but I'll get to them. Well, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I hope to see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.